do this. Well, let the record show it is 6:13. I'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Council of December the 11th, 2018. Apologize for the delay in our starting the meeting. I think we have a very special evening for those that are here in attendance this evening. We're kind of excited to have some folks here to present some good Christmas music, and we've got a couple of announcements we're going to make here in a little bit. Our first order of business, though, is I've called the meeting to order. We're going to have an invocation. I'd like to ask Chief Joins if he'd lead us in our invocation. I'd like to ask the city manager if he would to lead us in our flag salute. And if you can stand, please stand as we have the invocation and the flag salute. Be seated, please. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Here.
Councilmember Gruby.
Here.
Councilmember Dills.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Here.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Here. For the record, all members are present. We have a full quorum this evening. We'll move right along to our first order of business this evening. Under presentations, we are not only honored but blessed to have this evening members from the Fairview Baptist Church. I think Andy Hanson is here, and maybe some choir members, some good music, and I just am grateful that you guys are here this evening. I want to particularly thank not only you guys, but city manager and the city clerk, Cindy and Tim, for helping bring this together so that we can have this special time this evening. It's all yours, Andy.
Jesus, amen. I know I'm going to ask you to stand because you can't sit down and sing. It's kind of hard. First song, let's stand together. Sing to the King who is coming to reign. Glory to Jesus, the Lamb that was slain. Life and salvation. sing a little bit more. Government will rest on his shoulders. His name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, and Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. There will be no end to the increase of his government or peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from then on and forevermore. Wow. Y'all know Silent Night? Good. We'll continue singing. Silent
Thank you, guys. God bless. Merry Christmas. Hang on. Too many papers to shuffle around here. Couple of announcements before we go to the honor roll certificate presentation. Some of you may know, but Durant was notified, I think last Thursday or Friday, that the wall that heals is coming to Durant. Some of you may recall a meeting or so ago that Miss Nancy Ferris from the Three Valley Museum, Tim, and with the assistance of some other veterans and other folks, that we were making an application for that to happen, and indeed it has happened. That announcement came either last Thursday night or Friday, I think. It's coming to Durant, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial wall that heals. A 3/4 replica, I believe, of the wall that stands in Washington, D.C. Those dates, if you want to put them on your calendar, are May the 9th through the 12th. And I think that's a Thursday through a Sunday. But be a lot more coming on that. We're not only excited again, but honored to have been selected for that, to be in our community and for our veterans and for our citizens, for our school kids, a great teaching tool and remembering tool. Another special announcement, and I'm going to ask someone to do this, and if she would come forward. Today was a big day. We've had a busy and good few weeks leading up to this, but Stephanie Gardner, come up here, please, and let us know what happened today, for those that may not already know that. Yeah, you sure can.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Gardner with Durant Main Street, for those of you who might not know me or may have not seen our Facebook announcement today. Durant was notified today that we have made it to the top 10 towns that are competing to be on the Small Business Revolution TV show. So we did come a couple of council meetings ago and make the announcement that we had made it to the top 20 towns out of 12,000 that applied. So we were very proud to make it that far, but we found out today in a live video, we had a watch party downtown, that we were selected after another month-long process to make it to the top 10 towns. So I wanted to first say thank you, because that could not have been done without everybody joining together. A lot of the things they looked at were, the photos and stories and stuff people were sharing about Durant on social media with #MyDurant. I know sometimes we all have differing opinions about things, and it was really good to see people come together and really support our town to try to get this opportunity to Durant. If we win the TV show, they will select 6 small businesses that are owned and run inside Durant, and they will receive, along with our Main Street, a $500,000 makeover that the TV show pays for. So I've gotten a lot of questions of, okay, where does that money go, or who gets to decide how it's used? Ultimately, the TV show, would decide how it's used if we win, but they'll be interviewing our small businesses throughout this process. And the next step is they're actually coming to Durant in January with the TV show crew. That doesn't mean we're going to be selected, but the next phase is they visit all of the top 10 towns. And so they'll be here mid-January. As soon as I know the dates, I'll be sharing them, because we will have a community-wide reception when they're here to give all of our small business owners an opportunity to meet with the show team, them to get to meet people from our community, our city leaders, and really see, if we're a good fit for the show, and to keep competing for that $500,000 makeover. So it's an exciting time. We have a lot of work to do leading up to their visit in January. After the January visit, if we're selected as top 5, it will be up to the public at that point to vote. So that's when we'll need, our community more than ever if we make it to that phase, because it will be a 1-week voting period, and it will come down to which of those 5 towns gets the most votes. From our community, from across the state. I know many of you have been helping publicize it, and especially even now, like on a statewide level. So keep watching the Durant Main Street Facebook page, and the things that you can do between now and January to help us, or just keep sharing some of those positive things that you do like about Durant, and using that hashtag #MyDurant on social media, because the producers are following that. And specifically, if there are things about our small businesses that you like, because they are ultimately looking to work individually with those small businesses to give them some business makeovers and things like that. So please contact me if you have any questions, but I wanted to say thank you for your support up until this point, and we're really proud of getting this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for all your time and effort in this endeavor, and the citizens too for their support. Cindy, are you going to help me on this? Okay. There are certain milestones in one's life, whether it's personal or working career. And tonight we're recognizing 6 city employees, and this is not a city recommendation. It's an Oklahoma Municipal League recommendation or recognition that they sponsor for municipal employees, and I believe elected officials for that matter, that have 25 years of service. Somebody help me. What's 6 times 25? 130? 150. I usually have that done before I do this. But my goodness, that's 150 years of public service that we're going to recognize tonight through the OML. And I'm going to, Cindy, you already down there? No. Okay. Okay. I think these folks are all here this evening. Council and city manager, city attorney, come on down. We'll recognize these folks. Some of these folks, if you're here for our employee recognitions, you've already seen a lot of these folks at different stages, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I think we've had a few 30s. Yep, we'll have 40 in this. Okay, but Stacy Bennett here? Oh, is that on?
Stacy Bennett couldn't be here. He had a livestock emergency come up at the last minute, so he couldn't make it.
Oh, delivering a calf, huh? Test. Okay. Okay. Roger, why don't you come up and accept for Stacy? Again, a reminder, these are all 25-year service recognitions. Stay up here if you would, Chief. Most of these I've known maybe even 25 years or longer. A couple of them I know longer than 25 years. Chris Cisco with our law enforcement, our finest in blue. think on some of these we violated the child labor laws when we hired these guys because they're not very old. Especially this lady, Laura Hyder. Laura, come on up. Laura's in our law enforcement division too. Hi, Laura. These guys get a really nice certificate from OML and a really nice pin also. Another one of our finest, Chief David Hauser. Congratulations, Chief. Not Lieutenant Dan, but Lieutenant Joe Sebring. Joe's one of our veteran police officers, not only 25 plus years, but a veteran of our military service as well.
Just about.
Is Ben here?
Ben could not make it today, Mayor.
Dadgum. Well, Ben Veenstra is the sixth recipient, and I truly have known Ben since he was, I think, before he was even a teenager. Quite a group of individuals here. Each one of them individually has given dedicated service to our community, and we appreciate it very much. And OML appreciates with their recognition of these folks too. So let's give them a hand. We're going to get Mike's going to get a couple of pictures. Chief, stay up there. Yes, sir. Michael, please, if we all come out here. You guys want to all come out here, please? Michael's going to get some pictures.
Y'all have 125 years of service standing up there for PD.
Congratulations. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 1 under presentations. We'll now move to item number 2 on the agenda, the consent items. If you're following along, the consent items help streamline our meetings, allow the focus to be on items requiring more thought or consideration. The consent portion of the agenda groups the routine, procedural, and self-explanatory items together. They are voted on in a single motion. However, any council member requesting further information on a specific item may remove it from the consent items for individual attention under a separate vote. Under the consent docket tonight, we have items 2A through H. Are there any to be removed for consideration under agenda item number 3? Any consent items to A through H? Hearing none, we have a motion for the consent docket?
Move to approve consent docket.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item number 3 on the agenda will require no action. Under information items, any reports that anybody has any questions on? Tim, are there any that you need to point out anything? I think, and James Young, our street superintendent, we had one of our consent items was I think it's just a good thing to point out that we are a recipient of the Domino's $5,000 grant to be used for the filling of potholes within the city. And James is already working diligently on asphalt cost and trying to stretch that $5,000 as far as he can, and we'll be beginning work on that probably in the next, 60 days, 30, 60 days?
I think we get awarded in January.
January?
We've got about 6 months to spend it.
Anyway, that was brought up some few months ago, and sure enough, here we are, the recipient of that. So, any other comments on any of the reports, monthly reports? If not, we'll move to agenda item number 5 under administration. Item 5A, consider approval of the mayoral appointment for a municipal judge and alternate municipal judge for the 2019 to 2021 term pursuant to Durant City Code sections 35.16 and 35.19 and approval of contract services agreement. Item A1, consider the mayoral appointment of Kenneth Rainbow to serve additional term as municipal judge for 2019-2021 term and approval of the contract services agreement for City Judge Services C-2018-67. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item A2,
Move to approve.
motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Takes us to 5B. Consider approval to proceed with the Mooney Lift Station upgrade project for the amount of $277,150. And Marty?
So this, what I'm giving you to consider tonight is actually three different items labeled under the same title. The first one would be to prepare the money, the second one for a professional services agreement, and the third one to begin the bid process. The Mooney Lift Station, and we say Mooney real fast and nobody realizes it's actually the name of a street out on University, is Mooney Drive. And there's a lift station off that services the west side of town. And this lift station is currently over capacity and under servicing what we need for the development. As development continues, new developers right now are not allowed to hook their sewer on, and they're having to be forced to put in aerobic systems or septic system, which not only kind of kills development a little bit because they can't get as many structures or whatever where they need them, but it also means we lose a sewer customer for life, and we don't need that. We need all the customers we can get. The lift station is there, and we've had an evaluation of what it takes to get that upgraded to a situation where it will handle what we need in that area, and that's what I'm asking you for tonight. This project was originally budgeted in the budget for this year, But we did under budget it a little bit, and that's where you see that supplement that we're asking for to finish the project out. When we got the estimations in, we compared them to some current bidding practices or some current open bids in other cities. We realized we were a little low. So this should be a good number to move forward with.
Okay, Marty, under this agenda item 5B, that, does the 277,150 require action itself?
No,
Or is it-
you'll vote
or is it
on 1, 2, and 3 separately.
Any questions for Marty on the information he just provided?
Move
No.
to approve B1.
Second.
Motion and a second on B1. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. B2. Any discussion?
Move to approve B2.
Second.
Motion and a second on B2. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. B3.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second on B3. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 5C, consider award of bid and approval of contract to the Greenbelt Turf Management for Highland Cemetery Lawn Maintenance Services for 2019 to 2021 growing seasons in the amount of $124,240, C-2018-74.
And I'm back. So the cemetery, Highland Cemetery mowing contract, as we've discussed in the past, was terminated at the end of this season. So we're out for bid for next season's mowing contract. We did get 2 bidders in consideration here. One of them was quite a bit higher than the other one. We had a bid for $124,240, and then the other bid was $152,550. And so the contract, although it does spell out how many mowings and how tall the grass is, and it's real similar to the contract we had in the past. We feel like the $124,240 is obviously the best bid that they put together. One of the documents that I presented to you is the first document. It's a spreadsheet that I actually put together in the cost that we feel like it would cost the city to take over this project. And with the purchase of equipment and manpower, and we ran it several different ways. How many people do we need? How much equipment do we need? When's that going to go out of use? And we have to buy a new piece of equipment. So I ran about a 5-year schedule there. At the bottom, you'll see totals year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. First year obviously is quite a bit of an upstart because we got to buy all of the equipment to get started. After that, it runs about $140,000 to $148,000 a year for me to provide this service in a comfortable manner, to the best of our knowledge. And we took into account, if you look at that, I mean, ag supplies and office supplies, and because if there are people, they got to wear uniforms and they got all this. So this contract that you have in front of you for $124,240, I still think is the best situation. This particular contractor has experience mowing cemeteries, and that's very important. They're going into this eyes wide open, and they've seen our place. We called references to them. They mow cemetery in Lone Grove. They mow Ardmore Municipal. They mow Southeastern here in town, so they're already kind of local in that respect as well. They have experience in cemeteries, and that's very important when you talk to these mowers. And we feel like that they'll do a reasonable job. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Marty? Not, are we at a time for a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. 5D, consider award of bid to Douglas Distributing and approval of contract for equipment and motor fuel supply to Douglas Distributing, C-2018-75. Marty?
All right, so this is the motor fuel supply for the city. This is what we have at a fuel farm at the Public Works Department and another couple tanks out at landfill. We currently purchase from Douglas Distributing. They are the ones that provide our tanks currently. We had bids from Douglas, from Luke, and from McGraw, and McGraw actually had a couple other options on theirs, but in no way did anybody seem to beat the price for Douglas Distributing. McGraw's options consisted of forms of a payout to own the equipment at the end of the process. But when we did the math, the dollars and cents of it, we decided that Douglas is actually a better deal, even if we decided to go out tomorrow and kind of buy our own equipment, that Douglas would actually make a better deal. And Douglas, to be honest, is using, allowing us to use their tanks and whatnot for free, for no charge, as a part of their bid. The equipment I'm talking about is about $60,000 worth of tanks and pumps and a card reader machine. So with the ability for them to offer that to us for free, and then we have highlighted the charges that will be for per gallon markup, taxes, freight charges and delivery charges. They came out to be by far the best bid for the situation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. This is a 5-year contract renewable annually.
The contract, though, does have a clause, what do you call it? A
Escape
terminating-
clause,
A what?
an escape clause.
Yeah, or terminate, okay.
Termination clause. They always do.
Any other questions for Marty?
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Marty. 5E, and that is to consider approval of ordinance 1872, an amendment to code sections on screening requirements. Mr. Matt.
Yes, sir. Good evening. So the goal here was just to clean up some confusing language and not change the overall intent of the screening section. So red line copy is provided first, and in that copy you can see what I added, what I took out. The only thing, major thing that I added was language specifying the R4 manufactured housing district when the intensive or the multifamily R3 was already mentioned, and basically providing language for what residential zones, by saying residential zones, what exactly, what specific zones we're talking about in the description. So adding R4 in the definitions, and those in the first list are the considered commercial or industrial, unless otherwise provided in the section. The language I felt was key to clean up and specify when it's not mentioned what residential zones, that the list at the beginning should be considered. Before it was confusing and seemed to provide for two different intentions.
Any questions for Matt?
Move to approve ordinance 1872, section 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ordinance 1872, section 1. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Move to approve section 2.
Second.
Motion and a second on section 2. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 5F, consider approval of ordinance 1870, an amendment to code sections on sign regulations. Matt?
So again, with the goal of cleaning up some of our code language, the sign language in our code was separated in two different chapters. Chapter 157 and Chapter 159. Chapter 159 has the sign regulations title, and so I consolidated all the language in Chapter 157 into 159. So now we just have one source to look at when considering signs and sign permits. Left definition of highway overlay district within that Chapter 157. That was really the only thing left in Chapter 157. In Chapter 159, I added a definition for mural. But last month, when we visited this, I brought a draft before you all, and I decided to take out the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee in that. So with this language that I'm bringing forward tonight, that the murals and resolutions approving murals are solely within your power. Left that. And those, so no change of intent, just trying to bring the signs all within one chapter.
Questions for Marty or for Matt? Not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1870, section 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby, Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Do we have a motion for section 2?
Move to approve section 2, sorry.
Second.
Motion and a second for section 2. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby, Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Consider 5G, consider approval of resolution 2018-36, and that is to establish roofer registration fee in the city of Durant fee schedule.
Yes, so effective October 1st, the State of Oklahoma Construction Industries Board, they made a roofer registration, which was new for this state. And the other trades, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and the other major trades were already covered state and locally. And so now the state has their roofer registration as of October, and I'm proposing that we add roofer registration into our procedures at my department and implementing a $100 fee, which is equal to what the other trades pay, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
Questions? If not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution 2018-36.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby, Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 5H, consider approval of ordinance 1871, an amendment to code sections on metal buildings and building facades. Matt?
So my final effort tonight, trying to clean up some city code because the language was confusing at the beginning. So metal buildings and building facades and all commercial, mentioned single-family residential health facilities districts. The main, really two main things in this that I want to strike: single-family residential, because in no part of the language of that section does it specify single-family. Just details all residential. And then for more easily readability, moving what was in B, but facade treatments behind C, starting off with to start off with applicable zones. Again, not changing the intent of the code language, just trying to clean it up.
Any questions for Matt on this one?
Move to approve ordinance 1871, section 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby, Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries.
Move to approve section 2.
Second.
Motion and a second for section 2. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne?
Aye.
Councilmember Groby? Aye. Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Matt? Item 5I on the agenda is to consider approval of Resolution 2018-37, establishing a Streets and Infrastructure Task Force for the City of Durant. And the City Manager.
Mayor and Council, before you tonight is Resolution 1837. At the meeting on November the 13th of last month, Council approved that a task force be formed to examine the needs of our infrastructure and to establish a report back to this governing body at a time. This is simply an ad hoc committee which will dissolve once the purpose of the committee has been established to provide this council a detailed report on all the infrastructure needs of the city, which includes streets, of course, water and sewer plants, our distribution, our buildings, and other things. It's not just simply streets alone. At the end of the, I'm requesting that the members be named in the January meeting and have till the end of the fiscal year to produce a report for this body. Proposed for you tonight is a formation which would include 2 council members and 5 committee members, which would each be selected by the council themselves. Each council member would nominate a citizen to serve on their behalf of their ward, or as in Vice Mayor Hitchcock's case, the at-large position. And so for a 7-person board to be established at the first meeting, the times, these will all, of course, be public meetings. The public is invited to come to these meetings and get input to the ad hoc committee as well. So I believe there was a question in regards to some of the language had stated that they had to be of course, a Durant resident, and I think there was some language in here talking about a property owner. I think I would like to strike the property owner. I feel like folks that are renting, who've been here a while, that are residents, there's no need to exclude them from the process as well if the council decides to nominate one of those renters to be on the committee itself. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Tim, for the City Manager?
Just for clarification, if that is the motion, that would probably be under section 3, paragraph A, that first bullet point.
Yes.
Strike the words "and property owner in" and replace with the word "of."
Correct.
Move to approve resolution 1837, 2018-37. Is that supposed to say 2018 at the top?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2018-37, changing the resolution number at the top to 2018, and section 3, the first tab A, strike "and property owner of," property owner in, and replace "in" with "of."
You have a motion?
I got it all out.
I think you did.
Second. I think.
Motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne?
Aye.
Councilmember Groby? Aye. Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Look forward to the progress of.
And I would presume that if somebody's interested in serving that capacity, to contact a city council member?
Yes.
Mike, you might help us with that in your,
And we'll also have it on our Facebook. So if there's a resident within the ward of one of the council members that would be interested, they can, of course, contact their council members.
Yeah.
When are we planning to nominate our people or have this in field?
I'm hoping by the next council meeting.
Oh, cool.
Of January 8th, that we have the full slate of nominations as well as the 2 council members that would serve on this as well.
Anything else? Any comments? Okay, if not, we'll move to item number 6 on our agenda under public hearings. And item 6A, and I might mention to the audience under our public hearing portion of the agenda, members of the audience, once we open the public hearing portion, it's in order for you to speak. We ask that you try to limit your time to 3 minutes, but if someone's here in support of or in opposition to or to voice concerns, whatever. But item 6A is to consider approval of ordinance 1868, a rezoning request from general agricultural A1 to highway commercial and commercial recreation C2 for a portion of property located west of West Side Drive and south of Ed F. Davis Road. Matt?
Yes, sir. So the applicant, Dr. Whittington, requests to rezone the property you see on the screen, located with the star. So a 5-acre portion of his property west of Highway 6975, north of Shirley Street, south of Ed F. Davis, and again, currently General Agricultural District, A1, and Dr. Whittington requests a C2 Highway Commercial and Commercial Recreation District. And at the Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission ended up voting against recommending denial, with 1 member abstaining. We received 8 formal complaints at this time against the rezone. As staff recommendation, I do recommend denial of the C2 request, but recommend that we consider C0 or C1, which would be more restrictive commercial districts. If we could scroll to the future land use map, I think it's above. Because the basis of my staff recommendation is really this future land use map, which you see a screenshot of it here, and the star is approximately where the applicant requests for commercial, and he mentioned an application for restaurant use. But where the star is located on our current future land use map, it is the map which went through public process and was adopted by council, recommends low density residential, that light yellow. There is industrial recommended for just above the Ed F. Davis and more commercial properties. But given that this is the last updated document, I don't feel comfortable recommending such an intensive commercial use. The C2 is Highway Commercial and Commercial Recreation District. Just for the sake of the conversation tonight, C0 is Professional and Business Office District, which has the intention of office centers, grouping 1 or more buildings for professional or business offices, more of a neighborhood scale. That's what we see in the C0 zone. C1 is Convenient Commercial District, which intends for convenience stores and business adjacent to neighborhoods, so that is more neighborhood scale as well. And so with that, I'll step aside. The applicant is present. I'm here to help facilitate the discussion, and I can talk about certain uses that are allowed in these different C0, C1, C2 zones, if that would help. But with that, I'll leave it to the next person to speak.
Matt, I just have one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Going back, Byron, if you can go back to that future land use map.
Mm-hmm.
that strip along that area where the highway is future land use wise, I know that only goes up to West Side, it's on there for highway commercial. And I don't know if you could, would you have any idea what the intention was of having it that way?
That should be, and we don't have the resource in our office, unfortunately, with this, as we can't get exact dimensions off of the map that we have, but you can see the roads laid out. So West Stride Drive is there, Highway 6975 is there. It appears to be the right-of-way, the highway right-of-way, included with the highway. West Side Drive is within that highway right-of-way. So all of that red should be the highway itself.
But it expands beyond that point, and the reason I ask is it's not like that everywhere along 75. If you look at the entire map, that some of that's not covered as far as commercial, highway commercial. Once you drop below, I don't know what street that is, Main Street, basically, it's not that away. So I don't know if there would possibly be a reason that part of it, that section would actually cover highway commercial, but other parts of 75 along there don't.
And I think we're talking about two different things here. The map on the screen is the land use map. We do have properties that are zoned commercial. So in our zoning map, they do show up as red. But this being future land use map that they projected in 2002 for about 20 years in the future, and it really, this only includes the highway right-of-way, but we do have commercially zoned property outside of where it is red on the map.
I'm just talking about the future land use map in its entirety. If you look at the entire map, from just south of Main Street, I don't recall exactly off the top of my head what the next street over is, all the way up past Washington, along that strip of the highway, it's highway commercial. But if you go south or you go a little bit further than there, it's not that way. And I was just curious of what the purpose of that might have been.
And I'm not sure to that exact point, but it is council's discretion.
Are you talking about the similarities on Bryan Drive going up to?
Well, no, that's kind of another thing I guess we'll get into. Do you have, Byron, the entire future land use map? If this is the packet, it should be further down from there. It's on mine.
Yeah, usually, so these are my slides, which are crisper, and we scan in the planning commission slides. So these are the planning commission.
Keep going down. Or it'll be this, and it looks like this right here. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, it'll be further down.
It should be right past that. Go down another page or two.
There we go.
Right there. Scroll down just a little bit. Oh. So that's what my question is this strip along the highway there is general or highway commercial, but this strip isn't. When you get further north of there, it's not. It's all in the same limits. I'm just kind of curious to what the purpose of saying this strip along the highway would be highway commercial, but you didn't do it along the entire highway, which obviously neither of us were here 20 years ago to be a part of that, but just curious what the purpose might have been.
And I don't have those notes, unfortunately, of that comprehensive plan process that updated the map that we see. So I don't know. I don't have those notes.
I think Matt was in junior high when they developed this. Just kidding.
At least high school.
I'm sorry, high school.
That's all I got for now. I was just curious what the purpose is.
Any other council members have a question for Matt?
To kind of branch off that real quick, the difference between land use and zoning is that land use is brought forward, like this map on the screen, through a public process, but you all have the discretion to receive requests for rezones, and it's at your discretion to consider this as a guiding document. But it's your prerogative to discuss what scale of commercial, what might be relative to the situation, if you think it's appropriate.
Mr. Mayor, is anyone here want to speak up for or against this tonight? I mean, I didn't know who signed up.
Councilmember Dills has prompted me to open up the public hearing portion of this consideration. And we'll do that officially. The public hearing portion is open. And again, anyone in the audience, and I understand the property owner is present.
He's in the back.
And
Would it be helpful if Dr. Whittington, I don't mean to interrupt the public hearing process, but would it be helpful if Dr. Whittington started off the public hearing process for the sake of potentially answering questions with his explanation?
I wanted to see the chart that showed where Dr. Wiggins talking about building, and then where the houses were at for as the location.
So,
Yeah, keep going.
yeah, probably one of the closer zoomed with the boundary in red.
No. And it was a real good shot, yes, of the houses. I think that's 5 acres in there. So.
There is a
what-
clear image
Yeah,
image further up.
The proximity to the houses, I mean, what are we talking about there?
Yeah, approximately, it's, immediately across the street, either that Shirley or the
Okay.
north-south street, 30 feet.
We just discussed in one of these ordinance changes, resolutions, or ordinance, I believe, like buffer zones
By screening.
or
requirements,
screening.
And those
zones.
and those are required between residential and commercial when
Would
there's
that-
a significant
Would that apply
alteration.
then there on the west side of that north-south line, and then the south side of that east-west line there?
Yes.
Where the homes are?
Yes, sir.
Are there no residences on the south side of that property?
One lot down there.
Okay.
There's one empty lot to the south of their houses.
Okay. Mike, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to see what approximately the houses were to that 5 acres, and then what was dividing it there, a road on both sides?
The southernmost point.
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm. So the
Is there a
street
street
access.
there?
Shirley Street's right there.
It is to get back to the neighborhood, just
And so the houses are on the
to-
south side of that?
Right across.
west and south. And access off of West Side Drive is to the south of this property.
I think we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing portion, and Dr. Whittington is, I think, prepared to make a presentation. So, Dr. Whittington, and then others will be can certainly be recognized.
Good to see you guys again. As you know, this area I purchased several years ago, and where the star is, or a little bit probably north of that star, is that very tall hilltop right off West Side that overlooks, I guess that's Chuckwall Creek in the lower area there that's in a floodplain. The whole idea is to solicit a restaurant corporation, and I've contacted, I believe it's Dannard, who have Cheddar's, Olive Garden, those type of restaurants. They've expressed some interest because it's adjacent to the highway, and there is quite a bit of traffic through there. It has to be zoned commercial before they'll actually become very interested in it, because it's not a property. Currently it's zoned agricultural, and I'm requesting it be rezoned to C2 I know with our last meeting, we had several people were unsure of its use and how to limit that use. My initial plan was to deed restrict it. I own all the land around it, the majority around it. It's bordered by 2 houses, essentially. There's 2 houses that border that across the street. And my plan is to deed restrict it. I don't want minute markets, liquor stores, or anything like that, because it would greatly devalue the property around it, which I own the majority of. Because the overall plan is to utilize capital from that to build single-family homes in that area, which would benefit the city. Of course, with a piece of property that visible off the highway would generate a significant sales tax revenue. There are no family sit-down restaurants, nice restaurants on 6975 right now that I know of coming through here until you get to Sherman. And we have a lot of people, you've seen the traffic studies that drive by there. There's ingress and egress less than a mile either way. So you can get on and you can get off very easily there. I did put my personal number out to the community to the west of there. They have an email group because there was some misinformation. I did receive 1 phone call from Dr. Hill, and I answered his questions. He would feel more comfortable if it was zoned C0, but I cannot put a restaurant in C0. So that wouldn't help the plight. So I guess essentially I think it benefits the community. Increased sales tax. We can draw money off the highway sales tax and ad valorem. I own the land around it. I cross the highway. I look at it every day as I walk out of my office. I do have a history of building nice things here in Durant. I have been at this podium before I built nice things, and people told me I was going to build a detriment to the community. So I grew up here and live here, and there's no way I'm going to put anything or have anything put there that's going to be a detriment or look bad for the community. I mean, I can deed restrict it down to where there's not going to be anything there but what I want there. Okay. Questions?
Questions for the doctor?
Dr. Woody, how far from where you want to put your restaurant are we talking about down to Freddy's, the new restaurant?
Oh
How
gosh,
is that?
that's probably a half a mile. I would assume. I'm not great with distances. Half mile, probably a half mile. And the way that land lies, it has ingress and egress off West Side right now. There will be no ingress or egress off any of those small streets. It would not be beneficial for anyone to have people driving through neighborhoods going to a restaurant. On the west side and the south side, the two there, it would not be an issue to put barriers, trees, things of that nature so they can't be seen. The top of that hill is 20 feet above the rooftops. You know, that's one of the tallest spots in Durant. So that's one of the mainstays of it.
Any other questions for Doctor? May have more later.
Yeah, I'd like to address any questions people have afterwards.
Okay. And again, the public hearing portion is open. Anyone that wishes to address this zoning request, zoning change request, whether in favor of or in opposition to, can do so at this time. Please state your name and your address, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is William Tuttle. I live at 2708 Wilson Street. And if you're, I was going to kind of use your map as well, but okay, I guess not.
Oops. We lost it.
I agree with the gentleman that said any traffic in that neighborhood should not be going, but let me assure you, purchase land on Wilson Street almost before you get to Estelle. It's a little bit west of what you're showing here. On Wilson Street, built a house there 9.5 years ago. Since that time, with the additional commercial going in along West Side Drive, the traffic has increased dramatically along there. Let me tell you, big time. People now use that as a chase street to get away from going to University and West Side, because if you're going West Side, you're trying to learn, you're going to be there at least for 2 stoplights. And people now circumvent that by going through Wilson to Estelle, back out to University, or the other way. University to Estelle, Wilson back to West Side Drive. If you've driven on that street, safety issue big time. Wilson, for about half of that, as you come off West Side Drive, is extremely narrow, extremely narrow. It's not very well lit. We have very few street lights in that area. You've got a big safety problem right now. It will greatly grow if you have commercial in that area, because people will be doing the same thing, trying to get away from the stoplight at West Side and University. We have also had more noise pollution with Hoyt. We get to hear their outdoor intercom all day long. If you have commercial in that area, a restaurant or anything else, you're also going to increase the noise from that. You're also going to have light pollution as well. I also would question, because I've been told that the sewer that serves most of that area in the residential area now is about maxed out. I don't think they can add any more onto it. Last 2 points, you're making a big jump from agriculture to C2, an extremely one. Right now, it's a pretty nice buffer area from that and your other commercial a little farther north along West Side Drive. Thank you for your time and your consideration. I'm speaking in opposition. Request that you vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Anyone else?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Drew Jackson, and first I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for your service. I know it's often a thankless job, so thank you. I wanted to point out, you know, if we can look at kind of the satellite image, Google Maps or whatever we had up earlier, where we can see some more of the residents. Excuse me. One of the things that I wanted to point out is this street is really the gateway into this neighborhood. So I know this is focused on the land just north, but if we look at south, this is, you know, the main street for anyone who lives on Wilson, Gershwin, Marie, Shirley, Maxey, and Estelle. So there's already quite of homeowners who this does affect. Again, I think that image is cut off there. Secondly, you know, I do serve, you know, the city and this council as a planning and zoning member. Obviously, for good reasons, I abstained for this vote. But I do know that you know, some of the things that would give council indicators or guidance on how to vote is the future land use map, the Community and Development Office, their staff, the Planning and Zoning Committee, and then local community, all of which have suggested that denial is in order. My personal opinion is that that all neighborhoods and those communities, those residents deserve a degree of buffer. For those of you who are familiar with the C2 designation, it's the least restrictive designation there is. I'm not saying this is what's suggested for the moment, but it would be adult-oriented establishments, it could be bars, it would be an RV park. It literally allows everything. And so I understand what the intent and what the statements are tonight, and I would agree that you know, Dr. Whittington has a history of building some very nice properties. However, if those plans don't work out, if those plans change, the zoning dictates from here on. The council, the city has no recourse if something undesirable comes in beyond that use. So until we know exactly and specifically what that use is, you know, I think that's a good reason for denial of this case. I think for the council to ask residents to tolerate those types of establishments literally across the curb is asking too much. Again, this is not anything, personal against, Dr. Whittington. I think he's done some good things for the community. I am very pro-business. I am very pro-growth. I just believe that there deserves to be a buffer between, and CO may do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
I'm Rocky Powers. You're surprised to see me here, huh? And I did get emails sent out to most of the council persons today, and I don't want to rehash everything I said in the emails. Those of us who are here, and I will note this, when the property between University and Chuckwaw was rezoned, had our same neighborhood, our same neighbors out, and we objected to that. The promises made at the time by those who were having it rezoned or asking it be rezoned were that we would have this buffered cover of trees and greenery between Chuckwaw and the developed area to the south. There would be these nice garden condos and this nice upper scale shopping area. And Mayor Tomlinson, I think you were on council at that time, were you not? And as Mr. Jackson was saying, the problem is once you rezone it, it stays rezoned. The doors are open. That may well be the intention and the desire of the seller, but that doesn't mean that the folks you want to come in and buy it and make it into a nice restaurant or whatever you anticipate. That doesn't mean those folks are going to be the ones who are going to end up buying it or being interested in it. You have it rezoned, then you have to try to find some other use for it. Once it's rezoned C2, that use is wide open. So I'm like some of the others, I'm not accusing the doctor of any type of tomfoolery here. I'm just saying, when it's your land, you want to make some money off your land. He would like to see it developed in a certain way. It might be developed in that way, but if it's not, he's going to want to see it developed some way where he isn't sitting there with an empty piece of property. And once it's C2 again, the doors are wide open. So that is a great neighborhood. There are a lot of families, children, and it is a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. The traffic has gotten worse and worse and worse. The traffic comes through on all of the streets, but particularly Chuckwaw and Wilson. Sometimes there are folks going 40 miles an hour through there trying to get around and out. That's my time. Thank you, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, 3 minutes. Good evening, I'm Dr. Harrison. I think I know most of you. I've always wanted to do this. To my esteemed colleague from obstetrics, hello, good evening, from family practice. I live on Marie Drive, and there's a couple concerns I have about this being changed. Number one, I have a 5K course that I go down Chuckwaw. My wife and I do it 5 nights a week, and the traffic has more than 5 to 10 times increased since we've opened that up there. People turn at the little pizza place there where Steve Reeves' little shopping center is, hook it down to Chuckwaw, and they are literally doing 40 to 45 mile an hour down that road at night. There are very poor lighting. We have no curbs except the last little part by where Dr. Gordon lives. My concern is where you turn off up here where Dr. Whittington
the south end of his property. That's a terrible intersection to try and pull out onto that. Already, you can't even see to the right. You have to go way on out, which exposes you to the north side. That's going to have to be addressed, I would think. Number two, when you go down that road, there are no sidewalks, there are no curbs, there are no lights. It is treacherous at night. I can tell you that from past experience. My questions are, even if Dr. Whittington gets a restrictive deed and he sells the land, I don't know what the legal obligation of the person who buys it is to follow that. And if they don't, does Ken have to go and sue them? Do we have to sue him? Does the city sue him? Does anybody get sued? Does anybody care? That's a question I would have. I don't know what a restrictive deed does to that classification. I think Ken would build something beautiful, but again, if Ken sells it and the guy changes his mind, what can Ken do? What can we do? It's a great neighborhood. I don't want a gas station up there. I don't want the traffic on these side streets. It's already pretty poor. And a comment was made about the sewer, and the gentleman in the green shirt shook his head no. However, I'm going to tell you that in the last year, at least on 3 occasions, my neighbor Pat Phelps has had a city sewer truck out there, and I don't think they were digging him a well. So I know there's something on the south side of that over there that there's problems with. My water pressure is terrible. I look at a beautiful water tower, and I can't even get all the sprockets on my shower head to even fill up with water. And I put a new line in from the water meter and completely replumbed my house in the last 2 years. So I know I got good pipes there. So the water pressure's iffy. I think our streets are very iffy. Sewer, I don't know what, who's telling the truth there, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't think that they've been out 2 or 3 times in the last year to Pat's house to dig a water well. I think there's a lot of infrastructure problems there. I'm not sure legally where we need to be on a C1 versus C2. That's not even close to my finesse area. But I would wish that you would think if you were living in that area and you walked in that area and you had children and grandchildren who can walk up and down and we have to use the streets because we have no sidewalks in that area, is this what's best for that neighborhood? And I appreciate your time. And those of you that answered my email, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
If I can just ask a quick question before our next one that's up here, Tom. As far as, I don't know if this is the right word, how enforceable is a deed restriction in this type of situation? If he sells it and has a deed restriction and someone else says, I'm not going to do that, does the city have recourse on our end?
The short answer is no. The recourse is from the grantor. So if Dr. Whittington granted a deed with a restriction, if that restriction was violated, it would be up to the grantor to bring some sort of enforcement.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is that right, Judge?
Okay, my name is Jim Thorpe. I live 2 blocks west of that on Wilson Street. You can go back in your records probably when Jim Dunnigan was here. This man was talking about the sewer, and it can't take any more sewer. I wrote a certified letter to Jim Dunnigan just a few years ago, and when it came a big rain, I got 5 acres over there, and I've got a sewer opening at the bottom. You can see it on my land, and it looked like sewage was coming out of it. I wrote to him one time. Jim Dunnigan did a decent job on it, but I don't need sewer overflowing on my land. Number one, y'all don't want it because of the EPA, and that would come down on you and have $1 million fine or more. So you're going to really have to spend probably $1 million or so to upgrade that sewer. Because if I get sewer on my land again, I'll be turning it in to somebody. You have the letter. Jim Dunn can tell you where it is. It's recorded. I got a certified letter on it. Number two, I don't see Olive Garden coming in here. I think you got much of a chance at all. You got 25,000, 30,000 people that an Olive Garden has to come into. If an Olive Garden was going to come in here, they got one over in Sherman. They would come in over in Denison because they won't even come in over Denison because it's got 25,000. So why would you think one would come here? The other thing, I think you need to respect the zoning committee. They did extensive research on this, and I think it's highly efficient on this. And I'm just saying, he's saying Olive Garden, then you could put a beer joint on that thing too. But let's say they don't put a beer joint. Let's say just they put a nightclub up there on that corner. I come out of there, it's like they said. You come out of there, we're having to look both ways. It comes up on a hill, you can't see either way. You put a nightclub there, you're going to have some killings up there. And it's y'all's responsibility to look at that too. Because when we come out on the road, some of our friends and families is going to get hurt over there. So, just because You just don't need to leave it wide open. You leave it wide open, anything can come in. We sure don't want a nightclub up there to where people are drunk and coming out and hitting us when we're coming out up on Wilson Street. So, you know, I ask you sincerely to go with what the zoning committee asked for. I think it would be efficient. It would keep the families safe in our community, and we appreciate it a bunch, and I thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Jim.
Howdy.
Howdy.
My name's Jeff McQueen, live up in Ridgemont Estates. Fellow citizens here have pretty much covered almost all of my points that I wanted to bring up. I think it's important, though, to stand up here in front of everybody and throw my support in for what our zoning committee is doing, what our planners are doing here, and what my fellow citizens are saying. I like the projection. I like how we have it gridded up and how we have the plans for the residential. I like the fact that this town isn't a patchwork like you see so many towns out there. One of the things I really want to bring up to consider is the doctor's correct. That is a very high point in there. And that's the first thing you're going to see coming in there. Maybe it actually does become a restaurant to begin with. What's it going to be X amount of years down the road? We've seen many failed businesses here and there, and we've seen that they become all sorts of things. That'd be something out of control of the persons around. I mean, it'd be very difficult to change the zoning on it once that's developed. Once it's developed, it's developed. I really would like to ask you to support our zoning committee. I was there at the zoning meeting. It was a full meeting full of concerned citizens. Many persons, as you know how hard it is to do public speaking here, just couldn't stand up, but they were there for the moral support. And well, it is difficult to be up here to talk to you all, but this is very important to me. I like what you guys have been doing with Durant. I'm really proud of this city. I really like the beauty of this city, and I think we ought to follow the committee's recommendations on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McQueen. I believe it's McQueen. We're still under the public hearing portion. Is there anyone else that has a comment?
My name's Ted Johnson. I live at 2221 Shirley Street, and that long driveway right there on Shirley Street is my driveway. And what I'm afraid of is in the future, if something doesn't happen that Dr. Whittington is not aware of, if he sells it, he's got no control over it. But if they take that hill down, which is what I would do if I owned the thing, I would, you know, gonna develop it. But if they put in a open air nightclub or something in there, music till 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't know what I'd do. I guess I'd just have to sell out or something if I could get anything out of my house, if there's anything left in it. But anyway, I'd very hope you would support the Planning Commission. And thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
I'd just like to answer some of those questions. You know, I heard a lot of what ifs and this could happen and that could happen. There's a lot of things that could happen to this city, okay? And without city leaders and people that have grown up here and put a lot of sweat and effort in this community, it wouldn't be where it's at. The traffic, this land is bordered by a U.S. highway, okay, with a U.S. highway access. There is a driveway that enters that. There would not be ingress and egress off public streets. Okay, I don't have control of who drives up and down any street here, but that I would think that would limit a significant portion of that. The noise, it's on a U.S. highway. I can't see much being more loud than a US highway, a restaurant especially, okay? Deed restriction, yeah, I think a deed restriction has a lot of bite. Since I own all the land around it and plan on developing that into family homes, the last thing I'm ever going to place is an adult establishment, a liquor store, something like that. I think it's just actually ridiculous that someone actually would say that, and every time I've had something rezoned, someone has said that. So it is actually ridiculous, okay? I would urge you guys to, I mean, we're growing. We need more homes. We need more restaurants. We need more revenue. This is a benefit for the city in all aspects. It's a benefit. That area is highway commercial. It's on the highway with ingress and egress. When that original map was done was near 20 years ago. I'm sure it's changed significantly, and there's a lot of commercial areas that have been rezoned that aren't on that map. And I'd urge you guys to rezone it. I'm here to stay. I got an office right across the highway that I can hit it with a bow and arrow. So I'm not going to put anything there or allow anything there to make it look bad. I'm going to build a bunch of homes down there. So, and they're not going to be driving by a gas station or a liquor store for sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again.
Well, you'd have to back up some. Well, that's a ways out, but they're gonna be single family, not small, nice homes. The main sewer line runs right across the bottom part of that property. I don't know the sewer capacity of it, but I know when I brush hog it, I have to steer clear of a very large sewer line. Scan up, or scan down. That entire area, scan down, that entire area, okay, all up. That entire area there I own, that I guess butts up, is that Ridgemont? It comes down, and I have an easement on the far side of the creek. There's a little narrow strip, and hopefully one day we'll build a bridge across there. The whole scheme is to connect up all the neighborhoods through that, so they could get out on West Side Drive and drop through there on a Radio Road. That would connect the entire town up, but that requires, you know, a lot of work and a lot of input. So the people that live in those neighborhoods there don't have to drive all the way around, get on the highway, and come back to Walmart. They can get through. Now, that's of course years around, but to fund things like that, you have to sell property for commercial to do this. You know, to get people interested and builders interested. I reached out to D.R. Horton, the world's largest home builder, met with him. He is interested in coming here. And he was several years ago, but kind of got scared off because we have some issues that we're overcoming. And he's very interested in this area. So that's the scheme. But it requires cooperation. So there's no way I'm going to allow something to devalue all that land there that people have to drive by. It would ruin it. I don't want to run 97 acres for a liquor store or something like that. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's the big scoop. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Could I have 30 seconds to respond?
Sure.
I apologize, Jim.
Go ahead.
The doctor was making comments about some of the speculation as to what might happen there. Yet he gets up and tells us that he'd like to build a bridge eventually and is going to build all these fine homes eventually, and that seems a bit speculative to me as well. So if we're going to answer speculation with speculation, C2 is C2. C2 opens the doors. Period.
I agree with Rocky. C2 opens the door. You know, I invite every one of y'all. I live at 2315 Wilson. You can see it. I got a white fence with black wrought iron picket. And I invite every one of y'all out here tomorrow, and you can go on my property because it's got a gate. Go up that property about 100 feet. You will see a sewer down there. I will take a sample of it tomorrow, and I will keep it back, and I'll put it in a plastic container. When you bring restaurants in, you have grease traps, but grease gets through. You know, you can't tell me there's not going to be a nightclub or whatever there. You know, if somebody wants to put one on there, they can. But I'm going to take a sample of that. And then if this comes in, I'm gonna take another sample in. And if it does, it's gonna be sent to the EPA or whatever. I'm just being nice to you, but I'm not having sewer.
Mr.
get on my
Thorpe,
deal. So-
may I ask a question?
Yes.
Why don't you get with our city manager and Marty Cook
Yes.
and have our sanitation people come out and check that out?
Okay, and they'll take a sample and send it in? That would be good.
I mean, you need to
I would love to have
get
him
with our
take it
folks. If
and take a
there's
sample and send it off.
if there's a problem that we are not aware of that needs some attention.
It has been a problem in the past because I sent a registered letter to Jim Dunn.
Well, Jim,
But
that's
if he'll come out and take a sample and send it off to him, I appreciate that. Thanks much.
You recognize the face. I was up here a while ago. You've letting some rebuttals going on. I'd just like to make one last comment about this. The people that live out there purchased the land and the houses they live in for what was there. Low-density residential. And not what it might become in the future, but you show the future land map, and that's what it actually showed. Future means the future. Doesn't mean it's outdated. It's the future. So I'm asking that you at least give equal consideration for the people that invested and lived there because it's a low-density residential area. Thank you again for your time.
Yes, sir. Okay, we're still under the public hearing portion if there's anyone else in the audience. Council members have any questions, further questions for Matt or for the property owner or for any of these folks? Who's that? Charlie, come forward, please, and so that we can have this on record.
This is just a simple question. Is there no way that the city can say, okay, we're going to, the city restricts this to maybe, we got C2A, which would be restaurant use, and C2B, which would be something else. Isn't there some way around this to come up with some zoning that would be actually functional?
I believe, as Matt had indicated earlier, C1 would restrict it to where it could only be, I believe you said like a sit-down restaurant. I mean, there's a list. So, Matt, do you want to?
But I'm saying, Matt, can't you come up with like a C1A or C1B and have A restricted for strictly restaurant use and then the other for something else?
I mean, I think the short answer, I can answer that from, the short answer is yes, we could, but that's not what's on the table today. We don't have a C1A or a C2B, or that's not what's on the table.
And that was going to be my answer tonight. No, in the future, potentially. I wish anybody who wants to be a city planner, please join my profession and let's plan out Durant exactly. I mean, kind of form-based, design-based. That's very detailed, very specific, that we could come up with through a really intensive public process. But currently, we don't have those restrictions. We have in our city code a list. It's on the table here for anyone who wants to see it. I can give the link. Destry has a copy up there. A list of uses permitted in the zoning districts. So column for each zoning district and what's allowed by right with an X, what's allowed upon review by the Planning and Zoning Commission with an R. So we have things that are allowed. When something is rezoned, all of the X's can be allowed, anything with in the X box. But not, I do want to put out there, because it's been mentioned, adult-oriented, bars, taverns, those would need to be going through another process of review. Being zoned C2 doesn't just allow that by right. And the adult-oriented shops need to be 1,000 feet from any residential zone, church, school, park, that kind of thing. So we try to have multiple levels of oversight, but currently our zones they're umbrellas and fairly inclusive umbrellas. C1 has its own umbrella with uses inside of it. C2 allows more. C0 allows less. So just to put that out.
Matt, if I might, I'm looking at the code, and under C1 with regard to restaurants, it would allow full-service restaurants, presumably like a sit-down restaurant that's been discussed here. Also a takeout restaurant, probably like a Domino's, where there's no seating inside, it's just a takeout. C2 allows both of those, as well as restaurant entertainment, probably Chuck E. Cheese type restaurant, fast food restaurant, fast food with a drive-through, and a restaurant, microbrewery type restaurant. So that's the distinction between the two. C1 would allow a sit-down, full-service restaurant as well as a takeout.
Real quick, sorry, Drew. Because I realized that there's a detail to respond to Mr. Bachman. So in crafting parameters to what everybody wants to see, a certain restaurant of a certain size, we could come up with a conditional use permit, which require another process of public review and public hearings. So a conditional use permit, we could detail specifically what the applicant would like to do, incorporate feedback from neighbors and the neighborhood nearby. So a conditional use permit is the only way I see really holding Mr. or Dr. Whittington to what he's hoping to do, and including what everybody else is saying.
And Matt, that would just be that 5 acres?
Correct.
Matt, I have to relearn conditional use permits every time they come up. But if I remember right, a conditional use permit is applicable to the current owner only, and if that property changes hands, then the subsequent owner would have to come back and apply for that same conditional use permit, or a different one, but
correct.
But it would go back to the default zoning. So conceivably, for example, we could do the council could do C1, which is more restrictive, but by a conditional use permit, allow the current owner to expand to some of those things that C2 would allow, conceivably.
Yes.
But that would only apply to the current owner. If that property changed hands, then it goes back to that more restrictive C1 zoning. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And just straight, one conditional use permit that I mentioned would revert back to A1 without a rezoning approval.
So this was just for kind of clarification on questions I asked today specifically about this, because, and I'll just kind of say my thoughts are, going back to that original future land use map, the reason there's a red strip on there is I don't think it's too unreasonable to assume that part of the thought process is at some point that would be highway commercial. I think there's a reason it's like that in that area, not others. And I don't think this would set a precedent, is rezoning it to C2, because if you look at the area from Evergreen up Bryan Drive, the university back down, I think it's Parkway and North 21st, it's the exact same thing. It's the highway, it's a strip of C2 residential or C2 commercial, and then R1 residential. So this would basically be duplicating that. So I don't think this is setting a precedent by any means, but I do try and respect homeowners, because I feel for you, and then also the property owner that wants to have it rezoned. And I'd asked the question about the CUP, that once it changes hands, then that kind of starts the process over and defeats the purpose. So as far as our options, talking to Mr. Markham, is if we do rezone it to some type of commercial, whether it's 0, 1, or 2, and immediately before this, if he was asking for 1, we couldn't go to 2, so we can't go higher, but we can go lower. That it would be permissible if we did something below 2. So if we did 1 or 2, 0 or 1, we can make exceptions to that. So something that's not allowable or permissible as 0 or 1, we can include in 0 or 1 if we make a motion in that sense. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but I'm speaking to Mr. Markham that would be.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the legality there. Seems.
I think the council could approve a more restrictive rezoning than what was requested. I don't think the council would be on solid footing to approve a less restrictive
with
rezoning.
Conditions incorporating what's in a less restrictive zone. Like,
right.
approval of a C1 or approval of a CO with
So for
approval of a restaurant if that's
For
what
example,
is
and this is
developed.
just
I don't.
completely hypothetical, if we rezoned it, since he's asked for it to, if we rezoned it as a zero, a sit-down restaurant is not permissible in a zero, but we could approve a zero to make that exception to include that, because it's
I don't think so.
more restrictive than what he requested.
To me, the arbitrary and capricious comes to mind.
I think if you were going to go that route, a conditional use permit would be the preferred way to go. I think once you start making what would be unique zoning for individual pieces of property, you sort of run into some potential for confusion. And, I would probably say a conditional use permit would be the better route to go. If you wanted to do that, you could do a C0 with a conditional use permit to allow certain things, rather than doing sort of an amended zoning for that area.
And I agree that that's a slippery slope. I was just trying to keep in mind that the intention is to sell it at some point in the near future if it is rezoned. So,
Right.
trying to think outside the box and.
And I have seen co-applicants, whether it would be the conditional use permit contingent on the sale, Dr. Whittington's sale of the property. I think there's a way to make that work as long as Dr. Whittington and the potential buyer are agreeable.
Matt, did I understand that a CUP requires another hearing?
Correct. Has to go planning commission and then to you all.
So council couldn't consider that tonight then, could they?
Correct.
The council could approve if they wanted to do something but less restrictive or more restrictive than what the applicant applied for, could approve a C1, and then if the applicant wanted to do something that C1 did not allow, could come back at a later time and request a conditional use permit.
But just for clarification, C1 would allow
Yes.
what Dr. Whittington has
Yes.
is proposing. We can't hold him to that with the request tonight, but as far as I see it, you all could rezone, you all could approve a C0, C1, or C2 rezone tonight, but not C3.
Just a question, so you're saying you just cut the planning and zoning commission completely out of that?
The Planning and Zoning Commission makes recommendations to the council.
I understand that, but they wouldn't have, they haven't made a recommendation on C1 or C0. The only thing they had before them was the C2.
Correct.
Correct, and their votes for recommendation did not include motions with consideration, like we recommend denial, but that city council consider more restrictive zoning. That wasn't included. It was just denial, recommend denial.
Yes, Drew.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thanks. I'll be quick. First I wanted to make the comment that, I certainly want every businessman in this community to be profitable, including Dr. Whittington. I want him to be able to use his land and make a profit. That's important to all of us. But when we talk about compromise of CO, the reason that we came up with CO was because it maintains the quiet atmosphere that we have in the neighborhood come nights and weekends. C1, although to your point, does still allow some restaurant style. It also allows gas stations and some other undesirables that are 24-hour that absolutely affect the neighborhood. So again, I would personally ask for a CO. Then once there are specifics that this council could hear, possibly consider a CUP at that point. But that would have to, entail some details and specific transaction planned. Thank you.
Drew, question.
Yes, sir.
When you guys met, was there just the not wanting a restaurant or the other things that you were talking about that you didn't want there? So if there was just going to be a restaurant, is that still off the table too?
That's a good question. First, you know, I think it's only fair to Dr. Whittington if I say that I abstained from the discussion and from voting because I do have a conflict of interest. You know, that might be something that Mr. Narstead could speak to. From my recollection, still being present, the discussion, I believe even the motion made by Ms. Kerr was that she had recollection of how quiet that the neighborhood was. I believe she had a friend who lived in the neighborhood, and they had a habit of walking the streets and just how pleasant and how quiet it was. And so her recommendation was to try to preserve the nights and weekends that we all enjoy versus some 24-hour or late hour establishment. My opinion, in my opinion only, I certainly don't want to speak for the entire crowd
Right.
here, but you know, anything that you know is beyond CO does interfere with and change the atmosphere of the neighborhood. CUP is always open beyond that, though. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm kind of getting lost here. It's my understanding we're voting to either approve or disapprove a C2. Is that correct?
We can, and we've had this discussion in previous meetings, and I've had the opportunity to be involved in some of these over the years, but council can either take Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations verbatim. They can tweak or the best they can, and what we've been saying is the request is for a C2. We can't, we don't have the authority we have the authority to make changes to that request with a lesser or a more restrictive zoning classification. A C1 is more restrictive than a C2. A CO is even more restrictive than the C1 and C2. We don't have the authority to consider if the property owner were wanting a C3 to take it from a C2 to a C3. That was not the process that citizens heard and the process that occurred. Council can, though, consider a lesser or a more restrictive classification. So we don't have to, no, I think to answer your question more directly, Councilman Groby, is no, we do not have to vote yes or no on the C2. We could vote on that, yes, but we could also vote for a C1 if there were a motion for that, or a CO if there were a motion for that. Now, the property owner has a voice in that. He may say, no, I don't want us to consider that. And so it would be moot for us then to have a motion and a vote on something the property owner's not interested in. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but we do not have to up or down a C2. We have options.
Well, can the owner tell us if it's a C2 or nothing?
No, I would entertain C1 because the goal is to have a restaurant there. A CO it's a moot point. It's not a marketable piece of land to a restaurant. They would have no interest in it because they can't build there without going through this again for months. So a C0 is a waste of time for everybody. I would entertain a C1, but I don't know how restrictive a C1 is. If we have an establishment that has wiffle ball outside, because these type of things are coming up to where you have sports bars where they have outside basketball courts and really neat stuff like they're doing down in Sherman and Denison, we can't do that. But I mean, my goal is to make it marketable to bring in a restaurant. And if a C1 would do that, I'm good with that.
Would a C1 and at a later time a cup be possible for a, I mean.
I think Dr. Whitting's correct. A sit-down restaurant with some sort of entertainment venue like that, particularly an outdoor one, probably isn't contemplated by a C1. So in order to do that, you'd have to come back in for a conditional use permit or a rezoning, but a conditional use permit would probably get it done. But that type of facility would not be contemplated by C1.
Okay. Any other questions?
Ms. Groovy? Thank you, Doctor. Okay, we still have the public hearing portion open.
My name is Tricia McQueen, and I was concerned, the room here was full when the planning meeting came through, and all the people were here to talk about how they didn't want the commercial rezoned. Is it fair to contemplate any kind of commercial zoning, rezoning, when you haven't given the opportunity for the citizens to come back in and talk about any other C designation?
Ms. McQueen,
I'm sure that more people would be here tonight if it weren't the holidays. I mean, we had a beautiful demonstration today and singing by the choir because it's the holidays. People are busy doing what they need to do for the holidays. And I really think that we should give some more attention to that. This is a big thing.
Well, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this public hearing is about.
Yeah. Well, this property is the highest, close to the highest in Durant. So anything that happens on that property is going to be seen by everyone around, not just the next door neighbor. And trying to put a barricade by having a couple of trees around the building, that's not going to work. That's not going to change what we're seeing, because it's going to be way up there, and we see it from, a mile or two away. And I think that's something you can consider, the noise, the light pollution, everything that they're going to change. Now, I appreciate that the doctor has been here a long time and he's done some great things in Durant. There are other citizens that live in this neighborhood, in this area, that also have been here for a very long time. And I think that you should consider their rights as well as his. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Two quick questions. I assume, sir, you're the attorney for the city?
I am.
Okay. Question number one. Don't you have to follow the agenda? Is that not the reason that you post it for people to know? Question number two. If they do try to do something besides C2 on the agenda, aren't you circumventing due process of law? Thank you, sir.
The answer is you do have to follow the agenda, and I think that given the way the planning and zoning process works, they are a body that gives recommendations or advice to the council, but the council has the option of following their advice or not following their advice. So due process has been followed in that the citizens were, I'm not going to answer questions. I'll answer questions from the council, but due process was afforded, and the council has the ability to, or the authority to adopt more restrictive zoning than what was requested, but not less restrictive.
Tom, I think what he may be asking is sort of a follow-up to my question. If you read the item 6A on the agenda, it says to consider rezoning from A1 to R to C2. It doesn't say or any other, CO or C1. That, I guess is that your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am, it is, because that's what the agenda says.
Right.
That's correct, but I'm not debating it, Mr. Tuttle, but I think, and the city attorney can address it more, but there are either statutes or municipal rules and law that allow the council to consider the more restrictive zonings. And that's occurred over the years. So if I'm in violation, I've been in violation before. But I think the laws are in place that allow, Matt shaking his head too, but even though the agenda may be, we're not doing anything less restrictive, we're doing something more restrictive. And the municipal law allows for that.
Excuse me for belaboring the point, but if the agenda had said that was posted C2 or lesser, I think you'd have had a lot more people here tonight because they thought it was C2. And so that totally changes what you were going to be taking action on. And that's my point, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? We're going to close the public hearing portion. Anyone else in the audience? We'll close the public hearing portion of the rezoning request, ordinance number 1868. Council have any further questions for Matt? Any questions? If not, are we out of time for a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say one thing about this situation. I don't know how many of the council rode out to this area, went out and physically visited this area. I did. And I'd also like to say that I consider the if the planning commission is opposed to this and our city planner's opposed to this, that's pretty strong advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did. I went out there twice and parked on Shirley, got out, walked around, parked on Larry, got out, walked around, and I don't know that a sit-down type restaurant is going to make the noise any louder than what it already is with the highway traffic going by. And that's just my opinion. I'm certainly not speaking for anybody else on the council, but I did. Can we punt? Is that an option?
I know you folks have heard me say this before, but I just want to remind you that these considerations can be some of the most difficult for a council member. We're charged with this. We're elected to do this. But still yet in trying to honor the property owner's rights, the owner of that property, and then the property owners that surround that rezoning request, and trying to honor their wishes and their concerns. And then there's a matter of law, of not only from the municipal side, but from the property owner side. So I don't mind telling you, it's a struggle to try to do the right thing. Council have any other questions or comments or anything we need to discuss regarding this? Entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny approval of ordinance 1868, rezoning from general A1 to highway commercial and commercial recreation C2.
We have a motion. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Trying to think, I have a question here that, we have a motion to deny. So a motion or a vote in the affirmative is,
It's a proper motion to deny the passage of the ordinance. A vote in the affirmative is a vote to deny passage of the ordinance. A vote in the negative is to support passage of the ordinance, essentially.
I don't know if I asked this question earlier, Marty or Matt, and maybe I already did. It's just going on for a long time. Is there a highway overlay district that goes through there?
There is. It's
And-
750 feet from the southern line of the highway each direction. But the
Doesn't go very
definition,
far.
the description of highway overlay district does not say anything about zoning or use. No mention of this is intended for commercial use. It really just seems to have been created for sign regulations and billboard stipulation.
Is that a state issue or is that in our ordinance as far as?
It's in our ordinance.
I know there was something,
but-
what we passed today had reference to that. I just wasn't sure
Mhm.
if that
And that
affected
kept
that in
the
any
same
way.
language.
Gotcha.
any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
No.
Councilmember Hitchcock.
I don't think that's the right order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just don't want to vote.
I'm going in the wrong
Vote
order.
right now, but that's not the right
You're
order.
right, you're right. Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
No.
Mayor Tomlinson.
I want to preface my vote in that I have no issues with a less or a more restrictive rezoning request. My vote is no, so the motion fails.
Okay, so I guess, are you ready for another motion?
Tom, is another motion or is there a motion in order?
There would be a motion in order. I might, well, so the motion that just passed was to deny approval. It did not pass, or the motion was to deny approval. It did not pass. So it's right for another motion. And presumably that would be to pass the ordinance.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1868, changing C2 to C1.
Have a motion.
Did you say C1?
C1, which is more restrictive, correct? Changing from C2 to C1.
We have a motion.
I'll do as the mayor did and preface my vote to it, that we can presume a whole lot of things and try and take people for their word. I know that we're expecting that if it's C2, that this makes it wide open, that all kinds of things are gonna go in there. However, I shared the other area that's C2 and there's a home health place in there. There's things that are generally closed after hours and for the most part on the weekends, it's carpet business, that kind of thing, that, you know, we're assuming that it might be a liquor store. I know Mr. Thorpe said he wanted one right there, but those things aren't there. We're assuming the worst, and hopefully I'm not wrong on my vote, but I'll make a motion in second.
We have a motion, we have a second for the rezoning request from A1 to C1. Am I out of order in asking Dr. Whittington if he stated he would? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Nay.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. And Matt, I'm guessing
There's a
that-
section 2, Mayor.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Move to approve section 2.
Second.
Motion and a second for section 2. Clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Nay.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries.
If you could indulge me just a second, I just want to make it known before people start leaving as well that, well, maybe they can hear me outside, but as for my due diligence as a city planner, I do want to show that standard zoning law and procedure is that a more restrictive zone can be applied. So I'll bring that up and I'll distribute it to you all.
Matt, on the map, where you were, it was showing on the other side that we already have this in place. Is that correct?
Commercial zone
Yes.
adjacent to residential on the east side of the highway?
Yes. Where there's residential and businesses there already?
He's talking
Yes,
about
but-
Bryan.
but I-
Area on Bryan Drive?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd really want to see what years that happened and in what order, residential versus commercial. I'd want to know the details of that, and I never feel comfortable recommending something against future land use map, so.
Okay, that brings us to item number 7 on our agenda. Under citizen comments on non-agenda items. Citizens wishing to address the council regarding matters which are not listed on the agenda are asked to sign up. And come forward when I call your name, and again state your name, address, and topic to be discussed so that city staff can follow up if necessary. We have one citizen that signed up, and that's Mr. Bachman. Mr. Bachman, are you prepared to speak now? His topic is road funding proposal.
It's been a rather lengthy meeting, so I'll make this very short and to the point. As everyone knows, I've been very concerned about roads and the condition of roads, also about fiscal responsibility in the city. I realize that the city is going to have a $12 million debt when 21-21 comes up. As you know, I was against the last proposal and spent a lot of time and money defeating it. I'm going to offer a counter proposal. Number one, I'd like to see if you would consider putting this on the agenda for the next vote of the people. Let the people decide which way the city is going to go. Proposal 1 would be to remove the 1/4% from DIA and move it over to roads. That would give the city, if you take that money in addition to the money that the city is currently getting, that would give them approximately $1 million a year to use up through 2021. The second part would be a 10-year extension of the sunset with the provision that 1/2 cent of that money be dedicated to roads, 1/2 cent would be dedicated to paying off the $12 million debt. And it will easily do that in record time. At such time that the monies used to pay off the debt is done, the monies coming in would go to infrastructure repairs or infrastructure. The 1/2 cent would go dedicated to roads, which would give you, starting in 21, $3 million a year to the road department. And then they can tackle all of the major projects that we have and could do it in a timely manner. The committee you're putting together can give them a time frame and a wish list of which order they would like to get things done in. This is done without a tax increase, without a bond increase, and yet we show some fiscal responsibility by limiting it to the 10-year period. If you'll put it out to a vote of the people, I think the people will accept it. I will work hard to get it passed. If you're just going to come back with another remove the sunset and let the tax go forever, I will fight it again. I'd rather work with you than against you, but we can do what we can do.
There's more that unites us than divides us, Mr. Bachman. I agree.
Any questions I can answer anyone about that?
We'll see you at the meetings.
Sir?
We'll see you at the meetings when we start having our task force meetings.
Yeah, I would like to. Unfortunately, my daughter is going to be undergoing major surgery January the 3rd. She's going to be in the hospital 6 or 7 days, and then her recuperation is going to be over a month, and my wife and I will be in Edmond taking care of her. So I will be unavailable for that short period of time. But if the council does decide to go ahead and put this on the upcoming vote for the people to make the decision of what they want to do, then I will be an adamant supporter. I'll be putting out signs and getting very active with everyone in the community. This solves the debt problem. This also solves the road problem, and it does not increase taxes. So as a fiscally responsible Republican, that's my way to go.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Bachman,
guys.
and we'll be lifting up prayers for your daughter. How about a short break? Or let me, if there's no objections, we want to take care of utilities and airport authority before the executive session. Okay. Entertain a motion to recess out of regular session.
You're talking to me or Byron? So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Clerk will record the vote.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby. Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. We are recessed out of regular session. Let the record show it's 8:37. Call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Utilities Authority of December the 11th, 2018.
Not a problem.
Secretary will call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Here.
Trustee Groby.
Here.
Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here, for the record, all members are present. We have a quorum. First order of business, consent items, 1A and B. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk or secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye. Motion carries. We have no items under number 2. Under information items, any requests? Hearing none. Have none under administration. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned out of the DCUA. The records show it's 8:39. Call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant Airport Authority, December the 11th, 2018, and ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Here.
Trustee Groby.
Here.
Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here, for the record, all members are present. We have a quorum. First order of business, consent docket. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye. Item 2 requires no action. We don't have anything under information items, no citizen comments. Under administration, 5A, consider approval of alterations to the hangar lease agreement and rules and regulations for the Durant Regional Airport Eaker Field. Marty?
If you'll remember, back in May, we approved a new set of rules and regulations in a document, and we approved a new hangar lease agreement for the airport with the intent to incorporate and use that in January, which was also going to be the time we raised our rent a little bit. So I finally got out and reached out to the people who were going to be receiving the new lease, and I got a lot of kickback, and mostly because of a misunderstanding. The lease agreement that we had written and approved, which wasn't checked very well by the people who were looking at it previously. They always wait to the last minute and then we get some feedback. But it had a lot of information in it about ground leasing, which is a different animal. It really is. And it was confusing in what it required for insurance and what it required for consideration of subleases and some of the uses you could do. And so I sat down with about 10 or 12 people, part of the Airport Advisory Board, part of the just general aviation pilots that we have out there, and we went through the hangar lease agreement and the rules and regulations line by line in about a 4-hour span one day a few weeks ago, and really just read off what we thought we could scratch, what we could take out some of the confusion of it. We took out all of the ground lease information in the hangar. We did take out some of the insurance and changed it because we took out that ground lease information. And in the rules and regulations, we changed some things that, to be honest, I wasn't real clear on until the pilots interjected and gave me some ideas. And so we do think we have 2 better documents now. The board did not, the advisory board did not necessarily recommend, because we met and then we met again and went over it. And at the end of that, it wasn't a real meeting. It was just a group of people standing together. So there was no opportunity to recommend it. But I gave them all the changes, I sent it back to them all, and I have not received any negative comments back. I feel like what I have here is something we can work with. My intent would be at this time to start to institute these either in January or February, depending on what the time allows. I need to give them notice on their current leases, and so I think I got to give them 30 days. It may be February, but I'd like to start incorporating them immediately.
Okay, so we need to take action on 5A1, consider approval of the alterations to the hangar lease agreement.
They're 2 separate documents.
I have just one question. Marty, would these new leases be as previous leases expire, or would you just go in and
We're going to actually sign a new lease with everybody on one day, as much as possible. Most of our leases are so old, they're on a month-to-month basis, and so it's a good time to renew, get new contact information. We're going to do an inspection of the hangar that day, kind of across the board. We're going to do an event and try to get it all taken care of at one time.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a motion to approve the alterations.
Move to approve A1.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye. Motion carries. Item 5A2, consider approval of the alterations to the rules and regulations document. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby, Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Any new business?
Construction has begun. Your airport is shut down for about a 4-day period while they're repainting, and then it will open up with a displaced threshold, and the earth-moving equipment is arriving right now.
And you
A
advi-
long
you-
process.
You
We're fixing
advised
it.
us of that just recently, and
Yep, and this $7 million and 5-year project is finally starting.
good news. Thank you. Thank you, Marty.
Yes, sir.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
All right, we're adjourned out of the DAA. Is everybody okay?
I'm good now. I bounced out of here for a minute. I'm good to go now.
Entertain a motion to reconvene in regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. We are back into regular session of the Durant City Council. We are at agenda item number 8, and that is to consider executive session. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to enter into executive session. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye. We are in executive session. We will return.